3, 2, 1, let go! Level up, level up.
Welcome to Real Talk TV. My name is Roger Henry, and this Christmas special, I have the warmest pleasure of having Mrs. Anderson with me. Welcome.
Thank you.
The reason I've invited you today to our Christmas special, because it suddenly dawned on me that it was really important that we get a better understanding of the narrative of the elders who came here. So if you can just tell me, when did your journey, how did it begin?
It began in 1951, December. I landed here the last day of 1951. And I never knew that anything could be so different. You think you're coming to England. You never think, because everybody came over here and they write back and they say, yes, it's all right, and it's cool. How cool? Nobody can tell you. And nobody told, if they had said or told people that it just, put your hand on ice, because where we come from, we didn't have fridge. So you came and you start to wonder. And then I never thought it out. And then what was I going to think out? My mother said, you're going to England, and England may I go. So I came and realized, food and ration, me never hear about that. The first thing you have to do, they give you your dinner the night, and the next morning they say, you have to go down at the labor exchange and you have to go get your ration book. Ration book? I don't know anything about ration book. So you go down there and get your ration book, and at weekend, even if you're going to look for anybody, you have to carry your ration book and you have to take out piece, and you can get 2 ounces of butter and, meat and things like that. And we realized in the shops that when I left Jamaica, it's the last piece of breadfruit me eat, because it will be a long time before I eat breadfruit or any other food that I'm used to. You ask them what you eat. You eat what the people that you're staying with cook. And what did they cook? They made the best out of anything. When people come in and say, carry a little curry for me now, carry a little this, and of course you always have to carry the rum. But what they did, they made the best of what was available at the time. They would cook meat, they would cook fish, and the most famous is hock, and sometimes they cook pig's feet and butter beans. Then it come to the point now whereby the rice that they used to have was like pudding rice. They eat pudding rice, and when you say to the, inhabitants, when they say to you, what do you eat for Sunday dinner? You said, rice and peas and, rice? We only have rice pudding and peas. And then give them 10 years, you eating the rice pudding and they eating the rice and peas. And that's how it used to be. And you ask then, where you get the peas from?
Can I just ask you a question, Mrs. Anderson? Because one of the things that has come up over the years is, and I love that, trip down memory lane regarding that feeling of community. Community spirit sounded like it was a big thing, and it's something and today's current time, it is there, but it's not as big. It's like people kind of seem to be more reliant on themselves as opposed to sharing. And one of the questions I really need to ask you, and as I'm reflecting on what you're saying, is, you came here in the 50s. Why haven't black people prospered in having our own economy, businesses? You mentioned Indian. It took an Indian person, Indian man, to open a shop to sell our produce. Why have we not got black stores, that are big, built from the 50s in the UK? What do you think the reason for that is?
That's a big story. To me, I can only tell you as I see it, and I've discussed with other people. When the Indians came, just like us, they came one by one. You think black people live on top of each other? They were worse than we, because one bed is 3 shifts the bed do. One go to work in the morning, one go in the afternoon, one go at night. And that's how it is. And then they club together and they would, without paper or nothing, they would buy a house, they'll fill it with, you know, immigrants, and it's not as good accommodation as what a black person, because, you know, a black woman Saturday morning come, she expect everybody to come out and do their little bit, sweep down the staircase, and, you know. So the black people, they start think that black people are miserable when they have them house. You have to do this and you have to do that, and you're a servant. Me I go and Mr. Singh, you know, you about Mr. Singh. And they look for the house with the biggest house and the one that don't do anything. They did have the ambition to buy houses, but for themselves, not to branch out. Some people did, and some people did make money. But going back to it, it was very hard for a black person to really buy a house and to expand, because frankly, the banks didn't want to lend black people money.
Why was that though? Why do you think they didn't want to? I mean, you know, my grandparents came late mid-60s. My grandmother worked at Raleigh. She did a man's job. She worked on the power press. My grandfather, you know, he did construction. He worked on the Queen's Medical Centre. They both worked hard, bringing in good money. So why would the bank not give them that support in order for them to kind of progress?
You mean nobody never tell you that?
I understand, but you're 87 years old.
Yeah.
And I wasn't in that era. I've heard different versions, but I'd
Well,
like to
I
hear it
thought
from you.
people, you know, well, this is it. Back home, every little penny anybody have, they go on a Barclays Bank. And you came over here and you go to Barclays Bank. And when you want to borrow money, Barclays tell you that they're not lending money to black people.
Did they say that specifically?
Yes.
You're black,
and
you can't have any money.
I was brave enough as a woman, which I know they weren't lending money to women. And that's what was said. And then when I became wiser and started looking back at how I felt about England, coming to England, how I was treated, I start getting into what's happened. Because Barclays was the biggest slavers.
What do you mean by, you know, maybe our audience don't quite understand that. When you say biggest slavers, is that the biggest investors?
In slavery, because Barclays originates in South Africa. And what is South Africa? Apartheid. And then they opened the bank in Sheffield, in Liverpool. And I think, I can't remember, I don't want to, you better research this. I think, is it Martin's Bank? And I can see it now. And outside this bank is 2 black slaves.
To this day?
To this day, you see? And that's what Barclays is. And then, I don't know, but something happened and it was brought to the forefront and they started lending money. You have to know who and which estate agent to go to. And a lot of black people, I don't know for now, have to give thanks to an estate agent called Haslam. And, oh, better cut this off because I don't want to say anything, but it's the Jews, it's mostly Jews that used to lend black people money. They have like the Temperance Building Society, and they have private lenders that used to lend them. And it's people like Haslam. I don't say other estate agents didn't, but Haslam was the one that helped.
Can I just ask, I mean, the economy, everybody knows about Jewish people in business. They're very good at it. You know,
Yeah.
I lived in Austria.
But you
know,
have to be so politically
well,
correct.
Real
these
Talk
days.
TV is about, as it says on the tin, real talk. I lived in Austria. We all know about what happened during the Second World War. Many Jews were killed because of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi regime, but they still progressed. Even now in the world, they're still progressive. So I don't wrong them. However, wherever there's supply, or demand, should I say, there'll always be supply. So the Jews who were supporting black people, did they give a higher interest rate compared to the bank? Or was it the same kind of interest rate?
It was, I would say, it might be a bit higher,
Okay.
but it served a purpose.
So they used you in a way.
I wouldn't say so, because where are you going to get the money from? And they've got to make a living too. I have nothing against the Jews. I thank them, because sometimes you're lucky when you get the money from the Jew if it's a private lender. When you get it from the bank, it says, and nobody seems to take notice of it, you cannot rent. You should not rent a room. And then you know, in that first influx that came, everybody was renting rooms. And not with just one person in a room, a lot of people. Some only stay overnight, but when they come, somebody knock on the door and says, I wonder if the man can stay here. Don't know the man, you know. That was the kindness of people. But there was also the unkindness of people too. And you said to the landlord and say, yes, he can stay the night. And if it's a kind landlord, he won't say anything. One might say, you better give me 2 shillings for him room because I'm all burn light. You get what I mean? And that's how it used to be. But if you have from the Jew, then it doesn't come down on you like that.
So there was a better treatment.
Yes, because they give you your freedom. You could rent it. And then the people next door, the next thing, if they see too many people coming out of the house, they call the police. And then the next thing, if they realize that you're renting and they go to the bank can take your house from you. So you have to be so careful in those days. And talking about the kindness of our people, Friday night is always the night to move, because most people work Monday to Friday, and then you want to move in, and then you have to Saturday to clean up and things like that. And later on, I heard this phrase, Friday sit, soon to flit.
What does that mean?
That means you're moving on a Friday, you're not going to stay at that house long. It's an old saying. And I thought, it's not true, because a lot of us used to move on a Friday. And some of the quality houses, they weren't that good. You had water running on the wall, but you never see it, and even if you see it, you shut your eye, because where you're going to get another one, you have to start.
So the conditions were really poor.
The conditions were poor.
So I also heard that, you know, if you were black, you know, the more sort of prominent areas, nicer areas, you weren't allowed. You know, the landlords wouldn't accept you. They used to say no dogs, no Irish, no blacks. Is that
now,
correct?
I'm going to be truthful. I've heard it said over and over, and I know it to be true because the people who told me was right. But I've never seen it, and I've been turned away because they said that, you know, the room's gone. And then later on somebody says, there's a room down the road, and they says, no, you know. And
Was it because you were black, they just wouldn't give it to you?
I suppose so.
And tell me, how it's hard enough being a woman. So being a black woman at that particular time, how did you feel within yourself? Did you feel that you could potentially fit in to society?
Now, that's a sticky question, because here's what I feel. What am I going to do about it? I can't do anything about it. But I always have that fear that I am black and I'm living among these white people. What will they do to me? Because when I was growing up, nobody told me about slavery. And no, as a matter of fact, you grew up black, so you came here. It's only when you came here you realize you're black when, you know, people look at you and ask you stupid questions like where your tail is and what time it is when they have a big
Where your
watch
tail is?
on.
Wow.
Yes. What you do with your tail?
What, implying that you're an animal?
Monkey,
Monkey.
yeah.
Was that regular?
Not every day, but one encounter isn't that enough,
Of course.
you know. So then that is the extreme. And then you get the very nice ones. And when I say nice, nice, because I was literally adopted by an English family. And they took my daughter, they brought her up until she was school age so I could do nursing. I had another daughter, and every holiday they used to go to this lady. If that lady is buying Christmas presents, she's got 2 daughters, she always buys 3. And sometimes when I experience the injustice of the people I live among, and I get really angry and would like to, you know, in yourself, you know, and I said, no. Suppose the tables change and Auntie Rose is being attacked. And I said, I would have to protect her. So that one family and others, you know, balance it out. But I think it's like living with fear. I mean, a lot of us sit here, and because we've got men and women, people think, what did you all do? Black men fought because they don't like calling names, being called names. And they protected the people that they live. What did they do? I think that's when the word people start to look up and say Jamaican, because they know that they don't stand for foolishness. If you're going to talk to them, talk to them. Never treat them like some people would still like to call you boy when people from back home, from your little, they call you Miss and Mass, and you come over here and people disrespecting you, you know. And they stood up and they counted themselves.
It sounds like a real lovely time. And as I'm sat here listening to you, as I said, my imagination can wander, and to me it feels very, very community driven. You know, one of the areas that we, you know, as you say, it's not every part of society that's like that, but it, you know, it must have been a wonderful time to have lived. So what I'd like to do is invite you back on the show, because I feel it's really important that we have this information, because there's a lot of people in the audience, viewers, who wouldn't have lived that experience. And as I say, it's almost like a dying breed. So would you come back on the show again?
Yes, if you want me to.
Well, Mrs. Anderson, it's been a real lovely pleasure. I look forward to seeing you again. And as for myself, you know, real problems, real solutions, real people. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.